Hello everyone and welcome to Blank First Page. My name is Lucas. In this video I'm going to be talking a bit about what's been happening in my notebook life in the last 6 or so weeks. I'll talk a bit about the current field notes I've got running for my everyday carry, and I'll go through some stationery I bought on a recent trip. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to everyone who's been leaving comments, sharing their stationery stories, and of course liking and subscribing. This channel has only been running for about 2 months at this point, so it's been really fun to see the response you're all having to it and to see that you're enjoying the videos that I'm putting out. So thanks very much. So in a previous video from the start of this year where I chose my everyday carry field notes to start the year off, I had selected this 50th edition field notes notebook, my number 93, in my everyday carry notebooks, and I ended up using this one for about 6 weeks. Took it skiing with me. This notebook has been at 1900 meters at the top of one of the mountains we were skiing on. It is not a super high spec cover, which I like, so it became quite nice and soft. I used it as extensively as a coaster, as you can see some evidence of. The paper performed really well. I used a number of different pens and pencils in it. All in all, a very enjoyable field notes to use. One of the things I thought I'd share that I'd sometimes do in my field notes is to lay out some calendar pages here. Every so often, there'll be things I need to make note of, either friends or family visiting or places I'm going to go, as a way of ingraining those dates into my mind, or at least the vicinity of those dates. By writing it down and making a bit of a song and dance about writing it, I'm far more likely to remember it than if someone just tells me, look, in May you're going to have to be at this wedding or whatever. I'm definitely going to forget about that. So I go through a bit of a ritual of writing out a calendar setup like this, and I'll make note of some dates. So for example, where I've got these dates squared in, those are public holidays. In this particular case, this was the reason I started writing these out, was to make note of where all the public holidays are this year so that I could plan my time off work. And obviously this approach means that this calendar setup only lives with me for the 4 or 6 weeks or less, in this case, that I'm using the rest of this notebook. But as I'm using it, it helps me remember those dates. And then in later notebooks, I might do it again. Maybe I skip a month. I'm not too regimented about it. It just helps me sometimes when I'm trying to organize the upcoming months. So this is a system that works for me. This is about as close as I get to kind of a bullet journal setup. Fun to do sometimes, but it's definitely not something I'm putting into every single one of my field notes. So once I'd finished with this field notes, I went through the usual process of transcribing notes to my reference notebooks, to other notebooks, project notebooks that I'm working on. And then I selected my new everyday carry. Now at the start of the month, when I chose this red field notes, I was really close to choosing the Signs of Spring yellow field notes notebook. I didn't at the time, mostly because I only had 3 of them, and I've spoken about this before, but I try, when I know I have only a limited amount of these notebooks, I put off using them, especially if I know that the specifications of those notebooks I'm really going to enjoy. I kind of delay my gratification of using those notebooks as much as possible so that I get the enjoyment of the anticipation. But I also recently ordered some notebooks online. Watch out for a video on that coming out soon. And one of the packs I added to the order was another 3-pack of the Signs of Spring, just so that I could use them, so that I would have 6 of them and I wouldn't be as precious about using them, because I really wanted to use a few of them. So that is what I selected for my next everyday carry, and it is the field notes I'm currently using. So to start off a bit about the notebook, it got this cover that is embossed with flowers on it. So you've got this incredible texture over the top, and one effect that's been happening to it as I've been using it is that the top layer, I suppose, the part that is not embossed, that is not pushed in, that is kind of showing the wear on it. I keep these in my back pocket, so obviously the color from the jeans, which are black, rubs off on this, just dirt from the notebook being out and about. It does look a bit dirty To be honest, I think it's that bright yellow of the cover is making the dirt quite a bit more obvious. From a textural perspective, I'm really enjoying it. It's a nice feeling every time you pull this out of a pocket or out of a bag. You get to feel the cover, which is sort of a three-dimensional addition to the texture of a field note, where usually you just have a flat cover. It's wearing in quite nicely. Both the cover and the paper have more of a linen feel. They aren't, I don't think they are actually linen paper, but they have that kind of more fabric type feel, which I've really been enjoying writing on. One thing I have noticed though is that the pencil can smear on this type of paper, which is not something I'm used to happening. I'll often fold up a field notes like this just because it's easier to write on, and then put it back in the jeans pocket this way. And then because the paper rubs against the fabric of the jeans, and because this paper is a bit smoother, I think that's kind of having an eraser kind of effect on the pencil. And you can see here how the graphite from the pencil is fading and being erased off and creating this kind of shading around it. It's an interesting effect, and it's not really bothering me, but it's just an interesting note when you're using this kind of paper with pencil. In this notebook as well, I've got there's a sugar packet, a business card, and a torn out part of a takeaway box from 3 different places that make the pastéis de nata in Portugal, the Portuguese custard tarts. That is where I went on my trip in the last couple of weeks. I kept note in my field notes of how many of these Portuguese custard tarts I had over the course of 3 days. I managed to eat 13.5, which I'm very pleased about. They were extremely delicious, and the best ones were definitely from this place called Castro. Not only did the shop look really good, the pastéis were just amazing. It was one of these shops where all they did was the one type of the traditional pastéis. This tart, they just had hundreds of them, and they were all day, they would be making more of them. That is all they did, and they just had one coffee machine. That kind of philosophy on things really appeals to me. Doing one thing, doing it extraordinarily well, and not caring about anything else. So as with any trip that I take, I always look out for any potential good stationery stores, and other than finding a field notes store, MUJI stores are pretty much the only other store I seek out. It's one of those brands that is so reliable with the quality of its products. The aesthetic really appeals to me. It's that simple earthen tone design. In this case, I did buy a couple of things, and these are those things. So I got 2 notebooks and a mechanical pencil and some mechanical pencil refills. To start off with, it's just a plastic mechanical pencil. There isn't anything particularly complicated about it. 0.5 millimeter mechanical pencil made in Japan. It's plastic, and it's been working quite well. One of the things I like is that to close it off, you can push the whole thing all the way in. You can push that little mechanism that comes out, so you don't ever have a spiky, kind of fragile feeling part of a pen that sticks out. The one thing I don't like that much about this is the front here, which is removable. It's getting a bit dirty from the graphite, and you can, because it's semi-transparent, obviously you can see that through, so it does look a bit gross, but I think I'll be able to like wash that out maybe with some Q-tips or something. Nothing much to say about these leads. There's 40 of them in here. So it says, I haven't counted them, but that does look like a lot. And then I bought these 2 notebooks. This was the first time I'd actually seen these dimension of notebooks. So this is what I thought was an A5 sized notebook. It's wider than these are. This one says A5 on it, although it's slimmer. I think maybe A5 refers to the height more than it does the width. I don't know. I could probably look that up, but I like supposing. But this slim one is actually the same dimension as a moleskin. So if I put these 2 on top of each other, you can see that they're the exact same size. This one's much slimmer, obviously. Right next to it, they had a B6 version, which is about 2 centimeters smaller in each direction. This is much closer to the pocket style notebook that I enjoy using, so of course I had to have that as well. These again are super cheap, about probably 2 to 3 euros each, which is about $2 to $3 US, and really for the quality you get, and if you like this type of plain design, I don't think there is anything that matches that value for money and value for design, I suppose. I think I will use these for future work notebooks. They're not small enough, even this one are not quite small enough for my everyday carry needs. They're probably the perfect size for a work notebook. One of the things I don't like necessarily about using thick notebooks like this for work, when they are so thick, you spend so long with the one notebook. So this one I've been using for 6 months now. And while there's a nice aspect to that, because the paper starts getting really wrinkly kind of, and you can see how the pages become pillowy, and I've got some dog ears. It gets a lot of character over 6 months. I enjoy switching up my notebooks a bit more because I have a lot of them. I know there are lots of types of notebooks. I enjoy having that variety and note-taking experience. So a notebook that is like this, that's just 40 pages long, will probably last me a couple of months, will wear in really nicely. I'll enjoy using it, but then I'll be able to move on to a different one. So I look forward to using these for my work. So there are my ramblings for this month for what's been happening with my notebooks. Again, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate the interaction you have. Keep leaving your comments, keep liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.